I was so unprepared for what people could do when they're against you. They can actually ruin your life. Essentially, I was gone after as a very dangerous cult leader who leads people to commit suicide. And that's been a narrative, basically, that drove me away from living in Costa Rica, just because it got so dangerous for me to live there because of what was being said.
What's the biggest mistake you've ever made?
Oh, God, so many. You know, honestly, I think the biggest mistake that I've ever made is not addressing my haters fast enough. That's what's coming up for me right now. I mean, I could probably like sit here for 3 hours and think of something else, but what's coming up for me immediately in this rapid fire is that I definitely, in the beginning of my career, you know how many mistakes you make when you start a business. I was operating from this mentality, which is very like pre-internet, where it was just, I believe in free speech, so I should just let people speak and I should just turn the other cheek. And I'm telling you, it got me in so much trouble in my career.
Why?
It is out of control because you can't erase anything. Now, you know, since being in this career for 13 years now, it's like I've spoken to so many crisis PR people and whatever, and they've explained to me, you address everything in the era of the internet because nothing goes away. And when a story is told once and repeated twice, it's truth. And when it's repeated twice and 3 times and suddenly you're known, it becomes what the press say, regardless of whether it's true or not. And have fun erasing that. And it's been like, I mean, in the beginning of my career, it's really wrecked a lot of my experience with my career. Because in the beginning, I just loved this. I was not thinking of this as a business. I literally was thinking of this as just wanting to solve suffering and give the answer to the people. And I, you know, in that intention, I was thinking people are just going to love this. They're just going to like swallow it because I'm giving them the antidote. I was so unprepared for what people could do when they're against you. And, you know, it's not just speech. They can actually ruin your life actively. And there has been, you know, since those sort of innocent younger years in my career, there have been so many moments where I'm like, why am I even doing this? Because of the amount of damage they were able to create because I did not shut this stuff down when it was very small.
So I would perceive that as the universe's way of giving you challenges in order to help you expand.
Yep, it's happened. But see, right now we're about to get into a conversation about whether it's right or perfect that that happened or whether it should have been prevented. And I'm saying both could be true. I could sit here and say all of what I've gone through has made me 10 times better at doing my job, and it has, but it's also caused a lot of pain.
And what was the worst story that was, or thing that was perpetuated that wasn't true or that really affected you?
Well, obviously I'm in the spiritual field, so anytime people dislike you, they go after the whole cult leader thing. So essentially I was gone after as a very dangerous cult leader who leads people to commit suicide and basically that somebody, a hater of mine, ended up doing a piece who unfortunately was taken up by the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail is the one that the rest of the world looks at, right? So it just started overnight. It was like bam, 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 poof, all the media channels. This is a nightmare person, right? And that's been a narrative basically that drove me away from living in Costa Rica, where my retreat center is, because it got so dangerous for me to live there because of what was being said. And then more recently, this narrative led to a film crew who thought it would be very exciting to do a documentary on me on Hulu. It's not a documentary, but they came in and infiltrated my family for 3 years, pretending to be very close friends. But the whole time they had a hit piece planned, and I lost the person I was the very closest to in this world as a result of that documentary, which is not a documentary. And I will be in a very interesting lawsuit for a very long time because of this project. It blew my entire relationship life apart. I mean, when you get into this level of fame, people cannot handle it. Otherwise, everybody would be famous. So it essentially makes you more and more and more and more and more lonely, and it makes the people around you lose it. So, yeah, that's the worst thing that's happened. It's been a real snowball. Yeah.
And what's your biggest regret?
My biggest regret, my God, I don't operate with a lot of these, man. Let me think. I know this is supposed to be rapid fire. This is so hard for me to come up with an automatic answer. I think my biggest regret is not seeing the motives that certain people had for being in my life. Because if I had seen their actual motive for being in my life, I don't think I would be as confused when bad things transpired in our relationships.
And what's your most brutal life lesson?
Not everyone wants a relationship. That's what it is. I came into this life thinking everybody did, but that's not actually a lot of people's priority or values. In fact, a lot of people think relationships are simply the only way they're going to get to other things. And if you try to engage in a relationship with somebody who doesn't actually want a relationship, you are dancing alone in the ballroom.
I know that feeling.
So if a person is experiencing, I'm unhappy in this moment, whether it's because of some circumstance they're in or the thoughts they're thinking about those circumstances, they're in that moment out of line with their preferences.
So are you saying then that the preferred emotional state is happiness?
Yes.
But doesn't happiness slow down and avoid progress? And isn't it pain and struggle that creates progress? And isn't progress evolution?
They're two sides of the same coin.
How?
The unwanted, what you're calling the struggle, right? The unwanted is what defines the wanted. So we could consider the wanted state as the lotus that grows from the mud, which is that unwanted state. Without the unwanted, the wanted does not exist. There is no expansion within this universe outside the context of that polarity. So in that way, you could say that the unwanted or the struggle is what gives rise to happiness in the same way that it gives rise to the preferred state or the expanded state for the individual. But this is why I'm saying that happiness is so incredibly important and is the preferred state, right? Is because the fact that we even feel that emotional system within ourselves so as to feel, oh, this I don't like, this I do like, this acts as a kind of guidance system where a person going for that state of happiness, going towards the preferred state, whether that's their thoughts, words, or actions, it brings them into the expanded state, into the improved state, into what's next, which is quite interesting for this universe, I'll tell you.
Okay, so I think most people don't get what you've just said, because I think that most people want the preferred state of happiness, but they avoid the unwanted state of struggle to achieve the wanted state of happiness, and therefore they're always avoiding happiness paradoxically.
That right there is what happens in an unawakened being. I don't want to make it wrong, because the majority of beings who are incarnated on this earth are stuck in that cycle of instinct. Without that cycle of instinct, we get ourselves in a lot of trouble. So there's just a little bit of expansion happening with each being who is in that cycle that you're talking about. What really differentiates that pattern of instinct from an awakened being is that the awakened being says, wait a minute, it's almost in this observation state where it says, okay, I'm actually going to become conscious of this play between the unwanted and the wanted, between struggle and pleasure. I'm going to see the value in both, and thus I'm going to mine both for information. And with that information, I'm going to make a decision. You'll see a person in that state make a decision in favor of their preferences, but it comes from a place where they're not in resistance to the information that exists on the side of struggle. This is where you get into these Buddhist teachings of transcending samsara. Samsara being that wave of suffering. Oh, happy, unhappy, right? It's not that by reaching that state of transcendence or by awakening and awakening and awakening, you get out of the samsara cycle. What it is that your whole relationship to the waves of samsara change. That you're no longer subject to them. In fact, you may be choosing them consciously. And when we choose something consciously, whether it's choosing consequences or something like that, it changes the entire nature of the experience you have with them.
Hey, quick, before you go, if you want to watch the full, raw, uncut version of this episode in detail, no holds barred, you can watch it here. But before you go, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on.